A stray puppy follows a cop, then something unbelievable happens. When you think of police dogs, you think of the big, vicious animals that chase down criminals and sniff out all kinds of illegal substances. But not all dogs are like that. When a tiny and defenseless stray puppy started following a cop while he was patrolling the streets of LA, something unbelievable happened. The story starts with a police officer called Jack Morrison. Officer Morrison had been with the LA Police Department for around 3 years. While he initially had a passion for the job, he found that as the days rolled by, he was enjoying it less and less. That had nothing to do with his job per se, it was more about how he was treated. While on patrol, he often had to visit some communities that were pretty anti-police, and as such, really didn't welcome his presence. He frequently had to visit towns while on patrol, and as a result, they weren't particularly welcoming of his presence. Although Officer Morrison was a tough and resilient guy, there was only so much abuse he could endure on a daily basis. He liked to believe that he had a thick skin and that insults and mistreatment wouldn't touch him. One such instance happened when he was simply strolling along the street. Though he saw a group of young people on the corner in front of him, he paid them no mind. But as soon as they saw the police, they began to scream and call him many offensive and nasty insults. Officer Morrison had the option to ignore the remarks, but he had to act when the taunts escalated into rocks and bottles being thrown. He was about to issue some severe warnings when he turned to face the teens and noticed that a sizable throng had gathered, along with more family members. Though he was very certain he spotted evidence of weapons hidden beneath their clothes, the mob was too large, and Officer Morrison's life was in too much risk. So he decided that leaving would be the wisest line of action. The taunts returned as he did, and so did the rocks and bottles, many of which caught him and caused cuts and bruises. The problem is that for Officer Morrison and the other members of the LA Police Department, this was not an isolated event. This was nothing out of the ordinary. Thankfully, the patrol had been quite calm today, giving Officer Morrison ample opportunity to reflect on his life decisions. He has journalism training. He had the option to quit the police department and seek a totally other line of work with far less abuse and violence. He could make a nice livelihood, work from home, and be content with the work he was doing. A gentle, quiet sound was heard behind Officer Morrison as he made his way back to his police car via a quiet, unclean alley. He spun around in a hurry, but there was nothing. How peculiar. The cop continued to walk, but he heard the same sound coming from behind him once more. Upon turning to look around once more, there was still no indication of what it was or its source. But now that he was on high alert, Officer Morrison turned around, ready to confront whoever or whatever was following him, the moment he heard the noise a third time. But he was really taken aback by what he witnessed. It was not what he had expected to see. A little dog, scarcely larger than Officer Morrison's shoe, met his eyes. It seemed as though it needed a good bath since it was thin and trembling. It gave him a small cry and moved gently away from him when Officer Morrison got closer. The officer waited for the small dog to approach him while crouching down to prevent it from running away. Curious, the dog approached the crouched cop, padding up to sniff about. He gave off the impression that he was alone and without relatives. Officer Morrison gave the dog a questioning glance before realizing something. It was getting close tonight, and there was a good chance that something illicit or unlawful was about to take place down the alley. He did not want to take a chance on the little puppy getting injured or worse. All he could do was one thing. After carefully picking up the puppy, Officer Morrison brought him back to the police station where it was examined by a veterinarian. Following a brief inspection, the veterinarian determined that the small puppy was mildly underweight and dehydrated, but nothing that wouldn't improve with some tender, loving care. Furthermore, he verified that the little dog, who was only 5 or 6 months old, was still a puppy. Officer Morrison decided that it would be better to make sure the tiny animal was healthy and content before bringing him back to his original location after administering the animal a few vaccinations and sending him on his way. Officer Morrison brought the puppy back to his apartment and spent many weeks caring for him. He had since given the puppy the name Hobart. Officer Morrison and Hobart forged a deep relationship as the dog got stronger every day. Officer Morrison drove the puppy back to the identical location where he had initially discovered him, but regrettably, he realized he couldn't keep him. As he approached the filthy, dim lane, he pulled open the door and let Hobart out. The small dog, obviously able to remember the location, joyfully got out of the car and had a quick glance about. Officer Morrison lingered beside the small puppy's mother, waiting to see if she would come back, unable to just leave him all alone and drive off. However, it was clear after nearly an hour of waiting that no more canines were arriving. Hobart looked up at Officer Morrison with a quiet whimper. It was obvious that he was on his own in this world and that he depended on human assistance to survive. His eyes begged Officer Morrison, who stood for a long while contemplating. Since he was often out at work, he was unable to keep the dog at home. Then it dawned on him. Hobart may make a worthy police canine officer. Morrison picked Hobart up and drove them back to the police station, where he discovered the police dog vest that was the smallest. It's possible that the poor dog drowned, but he was still growing and would eventually fill it. After placing Hobart with the other police canines, Officer Morrison saw that everyone was rather happy to have a new dog among them. They attempted to play games of chase with him, but Hobart's legs were much too short for him to keep up, even as they sniffed and licked him. The puppy, nevertheless, was clearly too young to be interacting socially with such large canines. Since they were kind and well-intentioned, Officer Morrison had to think of another way to deal with Hobart, lest they unintentionally cause him harm. It turned out that there was a fairly straightforward answer. Hobart joyfully sat on Officer Morrison's lap in the car and strutted behind him as he walked, joining him on his daily patrol route after that. Then, an incredible thing occurred. Officer Morrison saw that he was suddenly welcomed in areas of the town where he was not wanted before. The policeman would get approached by people who wanted to pet Hobart and take pictures with him, as well as inquire about the small dog that followed him about. Naturally, Officer Morrison concurred, considering it an excellent means of fostering goodwill between communities where law enforcement was not as highly esteemed. Somehow, even this little adjustment had a significant impact. Hobart may seem little, but he was having a huge impact on the connection between the community and the police force. With time, these communities not only came to terms with Officer Morrison's presence, but they even came to look forward to it and love him, especially when they saw his small puppy trotting alongside of him. No more yelling, no more insults slung, no more throwing of stones and bottles. Rather, they would bring the small animal food leftovers and spend a little time getting to know him while Officer Morrison was out on patrol. For the sad, dejected police officer who, a few short months before, was on the verge of leaving his position, things were finally beginning to turn around. He might give it a go after all. Regarding Hobart, he seemed to be absorbing all the attention. Even though he wasn't as large or powerful as the other police canines, the LA police force nevertheless valued him highly. It is now up to you. What are your thoughts on this sweet and endearing tale? If you had come upon such a helpless and little dog by yourself on the street, how would you have responded? Please share your ideas and opinions with us in the space provided for comments below.